Welcome to the afternoon meeting, the September 22nd, 2021 afternoon meeting of the Lane County Board of Commissioners. At this time, I believe we're going to get a report from our Director of Human Resources, Ms. Alana Holmes.
Chair, Commissioners, good morning. Yes, we're here at this time as the board has been asked to discuss County Council Dingell's 6th performance evaluation, performance ratings, and goals for this upcoming year. The review period that has been discussed in executive session was from August 1st, 2020 through July 31st, 2021. Human Resources provided in advance of exec session information for the commissioners' purview as they prepared for their evaluation discussion. It included County Council self-evaluation, as well as an executive summary of the 360-degree survey results and feedback from that process. And just a really high level survey was sent out to 97 reviewers, with 39 being returned. That equaled a 40% response rate. And those were provided to you. As far as board goals, the annual performance evaluation process and feedback relates to the strategic plan. Strategic priority number 4 are people and partnerships. As Mr. Dingell is at the top step of his range, there are no financial considerations at this time. However, he will receive any COLAs along with all other non-represented employees. So at this time, Chair, I would like to turn it over to you and the commissioners for any comments that you would like to share before coming back to me for recommendations.
Thank you very much. Commissioners. No commissioners have any comments? Commissioner Bozovich.
Thank you. I just would like to say to Steve, thank you once again for your management of our legal team in very extraordinary circumstances of not being able to necessarily be in person in the office, court systems not meeting in person, everything that you've had to deal with, and the extra added of trying to be on the fly with reacting to multiple emergencies in our county. Your 360 review, where you were rated by quite a few people, from people that are direct reports to peers, to customers, came back excellent. And I just want to say that you were rated in that review as exceeding expectations. And my personal rating was on that side also, but not quite as high as your 360. And I just want to say I look forward to working with you for another year.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. I have a different take on the review this year. And in past years, I've been critical of your communication style. I continue to have issues with the way in which you communicate with people internally and the public in general. You're a self-described litigator, and we know that. But it also comes across in a style that's not necessarily always helpful for the county. We hold a really high bar for our leaders here at Lane County. We have one leader that shows an exceptional amount of critical technical skills, as well as a very high emotional intelligence factor. And For you, we don't hold the same standard. This is a problem for me. I do believe you have the technical skills. You know the law. On the other hand, I don't believe that you have the emotional intelligence for this particular position. And more specifically, you have a really bad habit of rubbing people the wrong way. You're unnecessarily confrontational when it's not in the best interests of the county. And you can get sucked into confrontation or exchanges that really have no value for the county. For those reasons, I don't think that this is a good fit anymore. We need to have the same expectations for both of our leaders. And right now we don't. I want to see us have both leaders at an exceptional level of both communication skills as well as technical skills. And we've talked about this over the years. The communication style that you have hasn't shown any change. I've been waiting to see some change in that style over the years. And I honestly don't think it's going to happen. I think you are the person that you are. And either we as a county accept that as the level of leadership that we want, or we don't. I personally want to see a level higher, one that matches our county administrator. And right now, I just don't see that that is happening. I'll leave it at that, Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Commissioner. Okay. Thank you very much. Other commissioners? No other commissioners would like to comment at this time? I will say, gosh, forgive me, Vice Chair Farr.
I'm not very good at stare downs, I guess.
I apologize. It's my eyes.
You know, Mr. Dingell, I've worked with you now for, this is my 9th year working with you, and I continue to be impressed with your ability to get the job done. And the bottom line of our work is that we get the job done. I look at your personal style, and you are you're certainly very direct in the way you approach things. I believe that that is an appropriate means in most cases for head counsel to perform. I look at the 360 evaluation, and I asked pointedly, why do we do a 360 evaluation? We do a 360 to get the input from the people you work with more directly than you work with your bosses, the 5 county commissioners. And in the last year, you know, it's been very difficult for any one of us to have any personal interaction with you because we've been held out of the office for reasons of COVID. That's been a difficult time to really assess how you personally behave, other than I worked with you for 8 years prior to that, Mr. Dingell. And the 360 evaluation, I'll be a little bit more specific. It's on all counts, you overwhelmingly exceeded expectations. My evaluation of you throughout the points that are made in the 360 and beyond mirror very closely what your peers, your direct reports, and what Lane County department heads have said. My total number on your evaluation exceeds expectations, and that is the same as the other groups that I just mentioned. So, Mr. Dingell, I do look forward to working with you for this year and potentially for years to come. And I think that you have been effective in not only saving the county a great deal of money, but also retaining a legal staff of lawyers that really, by all accounts, exceeds the standards that are established in other counties in Oregon. And there's no denying that. Mr. Dingell, thank you for the work that you do. I continue to support you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner Trieger.
Thank you, Chair. I will just remark, particularly for the benefit of anyone watching, the review period is August to August. I've only been in office half of the time of this review period. I have the great responsibility and honor of having taken office at a time like no other in recent history, in terms of what our communities are experiencing, both directly as a result of the pandemic, of wildfires, and of racial and social reckoning. And it's been very exciting to me to enter this organization at a time when there is a commitment from the elected leadership as well as our administrative leadership to look at issues of equity, inclusion, of creating a culture as a workplace. And culture starts at the top. And so much of my concerns, as has been expressed already, are not in the realm of technical expertise, of content knowledge, but of how services are delivered. And I don't agree that it doesn't matter how services are delivered. I think it matters a great deal. I think the tone and the culture that is set in each department matters and spreads across the organization and out into the community. I appreciate the 360 review, having participated in many of them before. I know generally, much like when people apply for jobs, references are glowing. So reviews are often glowing. As a culture, we don't do well at giving constructive feedback, and we often don't feel like it's okay to step up and speak out when there's a problem, or we think somebody else will do that. And so with all of that in mind, I just will sum up by saying this was a very challenging and difficult process for me as the newest commissioner, as someone who doesn't have as much time and experience working directly with Mr. Dingell on which to evaluate, but also given the larger context. And so I think sometimes two seemingly conflicting things can be true. Somebody can be good at the technical aspects of their job, but not necessarily a good fit with the culture of where an organization is, or more importantly, where it's heading and what its stated goals are in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. As chair, I would like to make this statement both to Mr. Dingell, to Ms. Holmes, and to whomever might be watching. This was an interesting experience. In addition to a 360 evaluation, commissioners were asked to provide a rating, and that rating was not consistent amongst commissioners. It almost went from one extreme to the other, which I don't think is a reflection on any change in county council's work. I think it reflects a change in the governing body. And I see that as a good thing. I see democracy as something that's always changing. We're always moving. We're always trying to grow. So I would say that unlike Vice Chair Farr, I've had total access to you. I've been interacting with you probably more this year than any other year, and I appreciate the service I have received. My concerns really relate to some of the experiences that others in our organization, not as high up, are receiving, their perceptions, and perceptions are important. We had those discussions just about sensitivity and understanding how other people perceive things, and that can impact relationships, and to me, relationships are what this is all about. So, so for the public, Ms. Holmes, my understanding is that when you tallied all commissioners' ratings, or am I not supposed to say this? It's okay? Okay. When you tallied commissioner ratings, it tallied up in your scale on sort of the very low end of the successful category, is my understanding. And I am hoping that given that we might actually look at the possibility, although we do understand this would have to be mutually agreed to, but look at the possibility of a 6-month renewal. But that's not necessarily what all commissioners agree to, and we're looking at the sum of the whole. But I think that a 6-month would enable the opportunity for much closer relationships, clarifying any issues, bringing this body together, and that's my opinion. But nonetheless, I personally thank you for the relationship that we have. I just want all workers in Lane County to feel they're getting the same level of support from you that I've been receiving. Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. And what I'm understanding your offer is to extend the contract for 6 months. I personally am not interested in extending the contract or renewing the contract at all. And I'm prepared to make a motion today to that. And if that is what we're doing today, I need some clarification on whether we're making those kinds of decisions today. And the reason I am stating this, because it's not made lightly, but my point about communication is so important right now because we are at risk of losing other really, really good employees because of the communication style coming through our county counsel's office. I'm not willing to sacrifice other really good employees because of something that I continually talk to at each review. Is my third review now, and in between reviews. I want to make sure that we as a board are aware of that and consciously understanding that when we make this decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Holmes, can you provide any guidance given Commissioner Buck's statement?
Chair, Commissioners, the packet that was put forth before you today was to really discuss the documentation of the performance rating and goals for the upcoming year. And I would be making that recommendation to the board. And then I think I would be seeking a motion. And so then that's, what would come from you back to me. That's where I would take my direction from. If that's the question you're asking.
Yeah, Commissioner Buck, do you want to hold that motion? Let Ms. Holmes make the report and then.
Actually, I'm curious if there's enough time because we do have to give 60-day notice in advance, and our next board meeting would pretty much be the end of that time. So I would actually like to make a motion now. And I would move not to renew county counsel's contract.
A motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that county counsel's contract not be renewed. Is there discussion? Excuse me, I'm going to do this right. It's been moved by Commissioner Buck and seconded by Commissioner Trieger that the county counsel's contract not be extended for another year. Is there discussion to the motion? Commissioner Bozovich.
Thank you. I find this fascinating as last September 29th, this board approved the annual review for Mr. Dingle that exceeded expectations on a 5-0 vote. And that board order was signed by then Chair Heather Buck. That within a year, the turnaround from supporting and exceeds expectation to recommending the discontinuance of our business relationship with somebody that has brought this county so far in proper management and supervision of employees and brought us a long ways in handling workman's comp claims. And I can just count down the ways that Mr. Dingle's improved Lane County. It is just shocking to me that we're even having this motion considered. And I would urge my fellow board members to vote no on this motion, as I do believe this is just a price being paid for something that I think is actually has political motivations in the background. And I'm sorry that Mr. Dingell's being caught in the middle of that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further discussion? Vice Chair Farr.
Thank you, Chair Bernie. You stated earlier that you have had greater contact with Mr. Dingell this year. I've had plenty of contact with him through the phone. I just don't get to see him in person. But my experience with him over 8.5 years, and my experience with him around staff, is that the staff greatly appreciates his work. I have heard from them directly and personally that he is the glue, quote, that holds the office together. I believe that. I don't believe that people were lying to me when they say such a thing. I also don't believe that people were somehow influenced by the 360 evaluation, and anonymous, by the way, 360 evaluation that would have allowed them to say exactly what they wanted and rate exactly how they wanted to rate. They rated exceeds expectations. These are people who have daily contact with Mr. Dingell. These are people whose work, the department managers of Lane County, whose work is affected directly by the effectiveness of Mr. Dingell's work. And it goes beyond just the directors of Lane County. It goes to really anybody who works on board orders, for instance, know the effectiveness of Mr. Dingell. If you work on a board order, you know that everything essentially goes through Mr. Dingell, and that we recognize it as seamless because of the work that Mr. Dingell does. You don't recognize seamless. Sometimes you take seamless for granted. Mr. Dingell, you provided an absolutely seamless work environment for moving this board and this county from where it was 8 years ago to where it is today. I credit you for that, and I praise you for that. And I'm bamboozled by this motion, quite frankly.
Commissioner Buck, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to respond. As chair each year, you sign our reviews for our 3 employees, now 2. And it is the overall average of everything combined. I've been very clear, I believe, since I began with my criticism over communication style. But I am just one commissioner, and I give just one review. So I want to make it clear that even as a board chair, you are obligated to sign those forms each year. Doesn't mean it's your personal preference or your personal qualified evaluation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other commissioners that would like to comment? Commissioner Bozievich.
I will just note, Commissioner Buck still voted yes on that board order. She could have voted no if she didn't agree with exceeds expectations. Whether she signed it or not as chair, I agree. You have to sign something the majority of board supports. But she voted yes.
Okay, I'm going to comment now. I think I understand a little bit about the pressures on both sides. As chair, let me just share my perspective, because I've been working much more closely with staff. We have staff that is absolutely overburdened and overworked right now. It's incredible the degree I'm observing people's ends being frayed. There's just so much to do. And it's COVID, but it's not just COVID. It's wildfire recovery, but it's not just wildfire recovery. It's so much is going on, housing, etc. And one thing that I'm concerned about is making such a radical change with no transition, with creating another load on staff. I've been very clear about my issues. I mentioned names, etc., in executive committee. That's why I am going to vote no on this, but I'm also voting no on this with the understanding that I want someone to propose a 6-month contract extension so that we can work through all of this, understanding it has to be mutually agreed upon. And if that doesn't occur, that doesn't occur. But so that we can work through all of these details and have another performance evaluation within 6 months. And so that's where I'm trying to factor in everything. I understand the concerns and pressures, and I understand operationally what would be impacted, and that's why I said what I said originally. So that's my comment on this, and I hope someone after this vote will in fact make that proposal. As chair, I cannot. Thank you. So is there any further discussion on Commissioner Buck's motion, seconded by Commissioner Trieger? Commissioner Buck.
Chair, I have a question on your statement, which is, I hear loud and clear, you would like a 6-month extension, but is that to then fulfill an entire year's contract, or a 6-month transition out and ending a contract?
A 6-month point at which we may transition out, or we may not, depending upon the will of the board at that time. That's my intent, Commissioner Buck. I don't know if that clarifies or not. Commissioner Buck.
I could support that if that was a transition out in 6 months, so that we could have a smooth ending to a contract. But if it's not, then, you know, I wouldn't be willing to propose that particular item. But if there's a feeling on the board that we need a transition to an end of a contract, I could support that.
As you know, Commissioner, I can't make the proposal, so all I can do is state what I'm hoping occurs. Commissioner Trieger. Commissioner Trieger, you're going to hate to hear this, but you're muted. We know how fast you can jump back on. We won't, yeah. Ms. Jones, while Commissioner Trieger is jumping back on, it's 11:26.
I understand. I will text Metro and let you know if we can have a few more minutes. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Trieger, you're on.
Okay, how's that? So again, I know that we are coming up against time. So once again, this is a tremendously big decision with not enough time to process and properly discuss it. And following this conversation and what commissioners have stated, I seconded the motion so that we could have the discussion. I would be requesting Commissioner Buck, as the maker of the motion, if she would consider amending her motion to instead propose, rather than terminating the contract, that we draw up a 6-month transitional contract. And so I'm wondering if the maker of the motion, if that needs to be a whole new motion, or if that could be made as an amendment to the original motion so that we can move forward and have that conversation.
Oh, Commissioner Buck, you're on.
Just want to clarify, if that's a proposed amendment, that is a 6-month extension of the contract to transition and end the contract.
That's what I'm proposing in order to then have that conversation, yes. Because it does not appear to me that your original motion will have the support.
Go ahead, Commissioner Buck.
I'm willing to amend the original motion as long as it is a 6-month excuse me, contract to then end and transition to a new county council.
So I'm going to request, as we're waiting to see if we have more time, Commissioner Buck, rather than use the terms "as long as," if you would just be kind enough to make a motion that we can then discuss.
Well, I made a
Chair
motion.
Bernie,
Go ahead.
I did
Ms.
text you. You have until 11:45.
Okay, let's all try and do this by 11:45. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Well, I've already made a motion, so what I would ask is if Commissioner Traeger would state a friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Friendly amendment would be to, rather than a motion to not renew a contract, the motion is to write up a 6-month transitional contract with a final date of 6 months out from, I don't know what the dates are. I would need Ms. Holmes to insert those, but to make a 6-month final contract is the amendment I'm putting forth.
I'll take that as a friendly.
We are now discussing that motion with the friendly, and Commissioner Bozievich has his hand up.
Just remind the board once again that there's no such thing as a friendly amendment. Once the motion's made and seconded, it's the body's motion at that point, but that's beside the point. I'll also remind the board that a contract has 2 parties. And we are currently operating under a current contract that we have signed and agreed to, which has a 60-day notice of termination, not a 6-month. So doing a motion for that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to work, because the other party has to negotiate and agree to that, which I just want to remind the board there's no guarantee of that. So this could purely result in the end of our county council's employment in 60 days if there's no agreement around the 6-month extension. Because I don't see any other outcome, which leaves us 2 months to replace a critical employee to this board and to the organization. None of it seems very well thought out. I would have preferred just to go ahead and move ahead with a vote on the original motion, vote it down, and then come back and talk about Chair Bernie's proposal, maybe an understanding that we'd have to negotiate that with Mr. Dingell as the other party to this contract. But this seems precipitous, and it just seems like it's being motivated from outside of the board.
Commissioner, some of your points to me make sense. So let's, if I may, procedurally, I wish Mr. Mokraheisky were. Is Mr. Mokraheisky here? Because procedurally, do we need to vote on the original motion? I explained why I was going to vote against it. I explained why I was hoping someone would make a motion then for a 6-month extension. I was very clear that I also have issues, but this would be an opportunity to give all commissioners the time to clarify, iron out, and then make another determination at the end of that extension. I could not have more respect for Commissioner Buck, but her motion was not that. It was to provide a 6-month transition to departing, and Commissioner Bozievich is 100% correct. Any modification requires mutual agreement. So given all of that, I'm going to add one more wrinkle here. I've been texted by Ms. Jones, and we have as much time as needed to deal with this. So our day is not over yet. So I think unless there's objection, we should vote on that original motion without friendly amendment from Commissioner Buck. And then we should discuss, I'm hoping as chair, I can't propose, but I would hope someone would propose a 6-month contract extension. And Commissioner Bozievich is correct. Eyes wide open. And Mr. Dingell, I apologize for you going through this, but that does not necessarily mean the county council would agree to that. That's what I'm hoping the board would offer. Is there any objection to voting on the original motion and then continue our discussion as long as we need to? Without objection, then, it has been proposed by Commissioner Buck and seconded by Commissioner Trieger that we not renew County Council's contract. Is that a correct statement of the motion, Commissioner? Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Negative. Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay.
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 Abstaining? Well, then I did not catch the vote. Commissioner Trieger, I didn't hear your vote. I'm sorry.
I voted no, and I'm prepared to make a motion.
Thank you very much. So the motion made by Commissioner Buck, seconded by Commissioner Trieger to end now the not renew the contract with Mr. Dingle is defeated 4 votes to 1. Commissioner Buck in the minority. We have as much time as we need. Commissioner Trieger, I believe you said you were prepared to make another motion.
Thank you. And I would like to ask, given the nature of a pre-existing contract and the wording in it and any other legalities, and I'm wondering if Ms. Holmes as our HR director could weigh in, or if there's someone else from County Council's office, if it's not appropriate or a good fit for our County Council to be weighing in and advising us on his own contract. But I would propose, if it is within the parameters and the scope of what we can do, that we draw up a 6-month contract and to give us time to do a deeper dive and come back and have more time and a more robust conversation about the concerns of commissioners and how they might be addressed at the end of that time, rather than a 1-year contract.
So Commissioner Trieger, correct me if, oh, I'm sorry, Alana, were you, Ms. Holmes? Oh, correct me if I'm misstating this, but your motion is to offer a County Council a 6-month contract.
Correct.
Okay. Discussion to the, oh, excuse me, is there a second?
I'll second for discussion purposes.
Thank you, Commissioner. It has been moved by Commissioner Trieger and seconded by Commissioner Bozovich to offer Mr. Dingle a 6-month contract, which it's understood would have to be mutually agreeable for it to continue. Is there discussion to the motion? Vice Chair, do I see your hand?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So Commissioner Buck was hoping for a motion to fire Steve Dingle in 6 months. That is not the motion. The motion is to offer a contract for 6 months, and then after 6 months, conduct a continuation or a further review of the Mr. Dingle's performance. If I'm not correct in that assessment, somebody please correct me, but this is not a motion to fire Steve Dingle in 6 months. This is a motion to extend the current contract by 6 months to allow further opportunity for the board to analyze and receive further input potentially on Mr. Dingle's performance, and at that point make a decision. Is that correct? If nobody says anything, then I'm going to assume it's correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Further discussion? Well, again, first of all, thank you, Commissioner, for making that. If there's no further discussion, I would just like to say that I will be voting yes on this motion. I appreciate the intent, and the intent really relates to both the intent, I shouldn't say that, should I, Commissioner Trieger? The reason I'm voting yes on this motion really relates to not hurrying anything through, understanding the incredible operational demands on staff and the critical role Mr. Dingle plays in supporting that. Giving commissioners, I feel that several commissioners have their mind made up on a decision regarding Mr. Dingle's fit with the current board, and a couple of commissioners, some commissioners need more time. This would simply allow us the time, if Council Dingle is willing to provide that, for us to have this same discussion and this same decision about our county council in 6 months. And it's for those reasons that I support this motion. Is there any further discussion before the question is called? Yes, Commissioner Bozievich.
I'll just quickly say I did second it because I know, Chair, you would have liked to, but as Chair, it's difficult to second a motion, so that's why I did.
Possible.
I do want to say I would support a full year's extension, but I'm willing to make this compromise to come back in 6 months and review performance again. So that's why I will support the motion, with the understanding that we have to negotiate that change in the contract conditions with County Council. So, onward and upward, and hopefully we can move ahead.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner Buck.
I have a clarifying question. Is that 6 months from today or 6 months from a contract renewal date?
Go ahead,
I
Commissioner.
believe it would be 6 months from the contract renewal date, because we'd want to do that review, the review process in time to give the 60-day notice. If we did it 6 months from today, we'd have to do the review 4 months from today or something like that. It would really only be a 4-month contract extension. So, if we're talking about a contract extension, it'd be 6 months from the end of the current contract.
Mr. Dingle, I do not envy your position, sir, and yet I have to ask you this question. When does the current contract expire?
The current contract would expire 1 year. I don't know. Apparently,
Is it December?
Looked up the board order. So.
Okay. Well, Commissioner, but I'm only speaking for myself. Oh, does Alana, do you have some information?
I believe this is what you're seeking. So under 1.4 adjustment of term, beginning July 1st, 2020, the contract term will adjust as follows: July 1, 2020 to November 30th, 2020, December 1st, 2020 to November 30th, 2021, and then annually thereafter.
Thank you.
And then with the caveat of giving that 60 days notice if you're not going to meet that December 1st timeline. So we're looking at the 1st or the 2nd of October for that.
Well, 6 months from the expiration of the current contract, here I can count it on my hands: December, January, February, April. It would be May 31st, correct? I believe that's correct. So that would be, so Commissioner Buck, you can let me know I'm wrong if you want, Ms. Holmes. I think that's 6 months from the expiration. So Commissioner Buck, my perspective to answer your question is we would be having these conversations probably in about 5 months from now. So there was plenty of time in the event that the board determined not to move forward with a contract for Mr. Dingle beyond that, that there would be plenty of time to meet the 60-day requirement. I mean, it's just moving backwards, but you see what I'm saying. We'd be having this discussion in about 5 months. Any other discussion or questions? Vice Chair Farr.
Maybe a friendly amendment that we all read Daniel Goleman's book on emotional intelligence, which was written a lot of decades ago. But I'm not going to make that amendment.
Are there any other substantive comments? No, I'm just kidding you, Chris. If there are none, the chair will call for a vote. On the motion made by Commissioner Trieger, seconded by Commissioner Bozievich, to offer to extend a contract with Mr. Dingle for 6 months. I'm simply going to, Commissioner Trieger, does that, okay, thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Let the record show that this body, Ms. Holmes, and of course, Mr. Dingle can object to this, I hope you don't, is going to make that offer surrounding whatever is recommended moving forward when you bring an official report to us for approval. Is that all we need now?
I will need to work with somebody from a legal perspective on, certainly county council has heard this exchange. There is the mutual component of it. And if that is declined, then, you know, from what I read, the contract continues unless something else happens before this, you know, within the time frame of the 60 days notice. And that time frame will happen while you all are on break. So that's a unique scenario, and there's conversations to be had in between. And I just want everyone to be aware of, I hear the vote. Until those conversations happen, I don't know the outcome on the other side.
Understood.
And to bring in to Ms. Holmes, I would say that it is, it would not be appropriate to have someone from my office be involved in those, one of my subordinates involved in those conversations. Obviously, I can speak for myself, but I don't think it's appropriate to put them in that position.
Thank you, Mr. Dingle. Ms. Holmes, is there anything else from you before I call on Commissioner Buck?
Only a procedural question of, technically, we still have ratings that I would seek direction to establish what the performance ratings were and the goals, or if you would want to hold on at least document the rating and the goals become part of the further discussion if there is a mutual contract moving forward, or we revisit goals at a later time when the board is back.
Commissioner Buck, before we potentially allow Ms. Holmes to do that, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Chair. I have a clarifying question from what you just mentioned. So if there's not a mutually agreed upon term of 6 months, what I hear is that what will happen is the annual contract will automatically renew otherwise. Is that true?
Ms. Holmes, I don't think that's the intent of the motion, but I'm going to look, is that what you said?
Again, I'm not the attorney to speak to contract language, but my understanding is if there isn't mutual agreement, then the contract stands, which says it's annually renewed unless there is written notice provided to the other party no less than 60 days prior to the December 1st renewal date of the applicable year. So that's why I was bringing that piece up earlier.
Commissioner, go ahead.
So I believe what I stated then was true. So as long as all parties are aware that if this 6-month offer, basically that was just passed in the motion, is not accepted by county council, then we're renewing it for the whole entire year. And what I would like to ask fellow commissioners is that really what you want? Was that the intent of the original motion? If that's true, fine, I'm outvoted, I get it. That's the way it works. But I would like to offer that if it's not mutually agreed upon, that we go back and consider the fact that we then terminate the contract.
I have thoughts on that, Commissioner Buck, but if any other commissioner wishes to speak first, and I did see Commissioner Bozovich's hand.
So I do believe we have board meetings scheduled for next week on the 28th. Is that accurate, agenda team?
Yes.
So we do have one more opportunity to come out and decide to give the 60-day notice. I believe in that short period of time, we could at least get an answer from council whether he's willing to negotiate the 6 months or not. And at that time, with that information, maybe an exec, I would encourage the agenda team maybe to have a short exec session scheduled to have a quick discussion with that, and we can come out and make changes then if we need to. But we're not quite at the tipping point, and I think we've got a week for there to be some thoughts and for us to make a decision on that. I mean, the other end of this is county council could decide to give us the 60 days notice.
Right.
So just, yeah. So I think we don't need to resolve that immediately today, but I think we need to be prepared to resolve it next week.
Yes, Commissioner Trieger.
I agree with Commissioner Bozovich around timing, and just want to note, I mean, in theory, all of us should have a sort of hold on our Wednesday morning. So I don't know if agenda team's already built out next Tuesday to a point where there isn't enough time. I'd hate to see us get into this exact same situation where we're rushing through, or we didn't have time to ask our questions or collect materials or understand the sort of flow chart of if yes, then this, if no, then that ramifications. So I would be supportive of us placing time on our calendars next week, and would propose, without having seen the agenda, but would float that Wednesday morning might be a better time to do it, where we can give it more of its due.
Vice Chair Farr, I believe next week's meeting only extends one day at this point in time, so that would be possible, but that's just recollection. Is that yours?
Yeah, that is. And it seems appropriate to, if we need to further discuss that Wednesday morning would work, Chair Bernie.
Okay. Anyone else? Commissioner Buck, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but your concern is that if their action isn't taken in the right period of time, if we haven't heard word whether this is mutually acceptable, you don't want to see something where a year contract is just renewed given this discussion. Is that correct? Okay, if that's correct, it seems that everything that Commissioners Bozovich and Trieger said is the case, and Ms. Holmes, we can have a letter, correct, written and ready to go, so that if by October 1st there's not mutual agreement, so the details can be worked out, we can meet the letter of the law and preclude Commissioner Buck's concern. Is that correct?
We can meet the letter of the law and have the decision made on what the contract looks like.
Yeah.
I'm going to just say on the face of it, I believe so. But again, I want to put out there that I will want to work with some counsel on this, whether it's internal or external as well. And my apologies for moving from a week on the date. Obviously, I knew that we were talking consent calendar, so that I was fast forwarding a week through that. And earlier, I didn't have a chance to say it, but the county administrator did touch base with me. He was out of pocket and unable to join us, did not have a link when you were seeking him to join us, and his apologies for that at the time. So.
Oh, absolutely. That's fine. Commissioner Buck, is your concern met as a result of this discussion? Thank you. Is there further discussion from commissioners on this topic or the process for moving forward? Diana Jones, could you articulate your process question so that we all hear and we all can respond?
Yes, I can. Unfortunately, because we don't have the agenda posted for the 28th yet, we do have an item on the 28th in the matter of documenting the County Council's annual performance evaluation. And if I'm hearing correctly, you are asking for an executive session on the 29th. So I need to, before I publish the agenda for the 28th, I need direction about that item, and I believe Alana needs direction as well for that item. And I don't know if you'd like me to set an agenda now for Wednesday morning with this item returning Wednesday afternoon. I just need direction for the public because we do need to post this today.
Ms. Holmes, I was going to call on you, but Commissioner Bozovich does have his hand up.
I was going to suggest that we amend the agenda for next week to have that Wednesday morning exec session followed by coming out into public session to affirm the county council's annual review. And, at that time, I think we'll be we'll kind of know what's happening and we'll be able to make the correct motions at that time. It's going to be tough because I think Ms. Holmes will have to prepare a couple versions of a potential board order. A 60-day notice one, a 6-month extension one. I think that's the only way we're going to be able to do this. Is it's going to have to come back out in the public after the exec session.
I agree with that process. I don't, but do commissioners agree? Ms. Holmes, do you agree?
I agree. I think when I was going to, after your conversation today, I was going to present the options of either moving forward with preparing a package documenting, the ratings and upcoming goals, or the board could ask to continue the discussion. And it sounds like the board is asking to continue the discussion and asking me to prepare, build out the packet with the options that we've heard. I will do my best to delineate those and have those ready for a Wednesday morning exec session, followed by the public session and direction and vote at that time. I'm understanding.
Thank you. I believe that's correct. However, I do see Vice Chair Farr's hand.
Just a process check. I think typically this kind of aberrant process would have to go through county council to approve the legality of it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but.
Chair, Vice Chair Farr, that's why I was saying earlier, my responses are subject to, I'm not able to avail myself of any council at this moment. So I'm providing my comments within that context as best as I can from where I sit.
Well, even the process of cooperation so that this body can in fact, we will observe it carefully. Is there anything other than that? I can't, is there anything, Diana, I think you have your process question answered, do you?
I believe so.
Okay. Commissioners, next week will be as long as this week in terms of our official business. Mr. Dingle, I apologize. This has to be a very difficult discussion to be sitting in on. Is there any other discussion then at this time for this public meeting? Are there any other items on our agenda? I don't believe there are, but am I amiss? Seeing and hearing none, we are now adjourned for today. Thank you all very much.